And we're rolling. Hello and welcome back to the Dialog podcast. Today my guest is Lothrop. He's a software engineer. He's worked in big data and most currently big into Rust. Hello and welcome.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it. And if you could tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you got into tech.
Yeah, sure. So I'm an only child and my dad's an electrical engineer. So I think that was a big part of it. Just the computer was the main way that I was socialized, right? I made I think a joke in the email about it being related to autism. And I think that does have a lot of correspondence there, and the sort of interest in tech sort of things, like anything that's really very finely detailed and very has to be exactly correct for it to work. But that's a whole nother thing. So I went to school for math, and then I ended up, it was between doing a PhD or going and working. And so I ended up choosing to move to New York City. And I grew up really rural and everything. So that's where I started working in big data and did that whole thing for about 7, 8 years. And then pandemic and everything hit, and I moved back home. And last year or so, I've really been into Rust, and now the LLMs and the AI stuff is pretty exciting as well. It's kind of hard to miss that.
Well, that's really cool. I like that origin of, being raised by the computer. I think to some people that might sound a little sad, but personally, I was raised by the television before computers were ubiquitous in everybody's household. And I think you got the better end of that stick as far as it actually preparing you to, find your place in the world. And I'm curious what the transition was like going from, you said it was very rural where you grew up, and then moving to New York to get a job in tech. How was that? How was that for you?
Yeah, that was like a fever dream. To be honest, it was it was like, all different types of people, sounds, smells. Like, I got an apartment right on Wall Street. It was like 67 Wall Street, I think, was the address. And that's there's probably 1,000 people living at that address at any time. Maybe not 1,000, but there's a lot of people in those buildings down there. And so the entire thing was, really surreal for quite a while. And I think I kind of got caught up in the whole city thing and that whole idea. And then when the pandemic and everything hit, and kind of stopped and taking a look at, okay, I don't really have anything other than work here. And so that's when I was kind of like, okay, well, I did this was cool, but now time to go back.
Got it. So you didn't stay there post-pandemic. That's moved closer to family support network, that sort of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I moved back home because I had no idea, with the way everyone was talking at the beginning of that thing, are we gonna even be able to travel state to state and everything? So yeah.
Well, I've never been to New York, but when you said Wall Street, that's such a well-known and evocative sort of space for everybody's I don't know. Everybody's heard of it. I got goosebumps when you said it.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine how crazy that must have been. And I know that New York was one of the places that was most severely impacted by the pandemic. So definitely feel for you going through that there and
Well, no,
understand.
I came back before the pandemic. It was when that
Well,
whole thing hit. But yeah,
okay,
um,
good. Good,
yeah,
good, good.
yeah. That I got like my mom got really paranoid about, like what the government was gonna like do and if we were gonna be allowed to travel. And I kind of am wary of that sort of thing myself. So like when they started talking about like shutting things down and everything, I just basically like booked it out of there and went back home. And then like they did like not as bad, in some states, but they did shut things down for quite a while. But no, like there, I was there from like I think around 2014 to yeah, that'd be up to 2020. Um, when that was about when I came back, and that was really cool because like it was still really like nice and cleaned up and like was you know not. I feel like it's gotten started to get kind of a little bit grimier again. The city has, um, but I remember like that first apartment I had on Wall Street. Every morning there was a guy that would play the saxophone on Wall Street at like 7 in the morning, right? And I was up on maybe the 11th or the 14th floor or something, but like I would get woken up each morning with like that like kind of like bluesy, jazzy music, like floating through the window, and it was insane. It's like, wow, is this real? But yeah, it's pretty neat.
Sounds pretty idyllic, really.
Yeah, as long as you stay in the right places. Yeah, definitely.
So, when you moved back, did you stop working big data at that time? Was that also a career transition as well as location?
Um, no, I got a job at one of the big tech, relatively companies here, uh, and I did that for like a year. That was still big data and cloud stuff, but it was all like enterprise Java, and I felt like it really like sucked the soul out of me. I just hated it because it was a big company. It was an office job. I had to go into the office, and like it was I almost for a period there kind of like lost like that sort of like love, that like like excitement about programming. But actually kind of brought it back. So I worked for a buddy of mine from I worked in ad tech in New York. Um, so it was he wanted to start a company. Um, he's a data science guy. I'm an engineer, and then we had like a BD guy to do like business development, sales, dealing with customers, that sort of thing. And we built like everything that we had learned during our time in the industry in New York, um, with just like the three of us. Um, and that uh, we did for like 2.5 years. Technically, it's still like around, just kind of like the data pipelines break sometimes, and I got to go fix something. But it's pretty much just like chugging along. We're not getting any new clients or anything. Um, and then I don't know if you're familiar with Library, LBRY.
No,
It's
I'm not.
okay. It's a now defunct company that was trying to. I guess the motto was to do for publishing what Bitcoin did for currency.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
so uh, it the main product, which was technically a separate company from Library, is Odyssey, Odyssee. It's like a competitor to YouTube, kind of, but it pitches itself as like a free speech type of platform. Um, and anyways, I got a job with them, uh, with Library, and then the SEC came in and sued them for like $10 million, and the whole thing got shut down.
Oh, well, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and that was like my dream job because it was open source. So, I could like I didn't have to, like it was just all out on GitHub. I was writing in Go. So I'm a big fan of Golang as well. I do prefer Rust. Like I started out doing a lot of stuff in C. I did some embedded work in college and some like hypervisors and things like that, compilers and whatnot. So I really like the high performance, kind of close to the hardware. That's one of the things I love about Rust. But Go was kind of like almost there. Like it,
Mm.
I think Rob Pike at Google did Go, but he was one of the guys that did C originally. So it was kind of like his. I look at it as like his modernization of C, which I still think you shouldn't put a garbage collector in it, but that's just me being nitpicky, and then you could probably pretty much turn it off if you really had to, get performance out of it. But yeah, so I was working in Go, porting like the main hub that dealt with processing like the requests for claims and block information, like block headers, block height, that sort of stuff. They would index the blockchain, and then it would serve like an API that you could get information so that people could make like third-party apps and wallets, what have you. And I was porting all that from Python to Go. So that was like, I loved that job. But then yeah, they got sued into the ground. And so kind of since then, I've been doing like a little bit of contract working and stuff. But mostly I've just been learning Rust. And as I said, my degree is actually in math. I've been like actually getting into like category theory and that like that more abstract math stuff, which kind of ties into languages like Rust with the algebraic data types, probably more Haskell, which is really heavy duty into that. But that's just another part of why Rust is so amazing.
Thank you. I super enjoyed hearing how you went from, knowing C, learning Go, and learning Rust, and the application with Library sounds like it was super innovative. Awesome that it was open source. It sounds like you were really a part of growing with the community in doing that at that time. And so that's pretty cool because you answered a lot of my follow-up questions from from the previous. So thank you. I guess that brings us in, unless there's anything else, does that bring us up to what you're working on currently?
More or less, yeah. So I kind of got into some of like the different I don't know how people look at Discord, if it's just like as a gaming sort of platform or like chat, but there's like people have Discord servers for like all types of things, like whatever interest you can think of, right? It's basically, I think of it more as like, how AOL had their intranet thing back in the early days of the interwebs.
Mm-hmm.
Like they try to kind of keep you siloed in like the AOL like keywords and stuff like that. And you could get out onto the internet, but you kind of they wanted to keep you there. That's really what Discord kind of is. That like there's gaming servers, there's fan fiction, servers, there's like anything you can think of, like your mother's gardening club or whatever. Could have
Yeah, I belong to a few. I don't use it well. I'm using it a lot more lately. The newest server I've joined is very active, and it's really really fun. So I'm slowly starting to migrate more of my just online communication there, and to me it feels more like every server feels like a community.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm in probably over 150 Discord servers.
It's going to be a lot to manage.
Yeah, it is, but most of them you just like mute and like never look at again. But like I run a server that has nearly 300 people, and that's like I consider that kind of on the smaller side.
Yeah.
So I think when you get to like 1,000, you have to get like they kind of evaluate you, like Discord does, to see if you can be like a publicly listed server on their whole like search thing and all that stuff.
Oh, I didn't realize that happened at the threshold.
Yep.
The ones I'm in, for the most part, are some of them are smaller. The new one I've joined is bigger. It's like 6,000, but it's yeah. And then others are like people like tech conferences, especially when they were all doing remote, would set up a Discord component. So I think I have like 3 or 4 different like different servers that are dormant now from those types of events.
Yeah. There's a lot of good resources. Like I'm in like a dozen plus servers. The main library I use for writing my Discord bot in Rust has its own server, which is actually pretty active. They have a good community there. So that like it seems like that's like where kind of like how all the tech people kind of went to Twitter over like say Facebook or Threads or whatever the new thing is, or Instagram. I feel like it similarly like Discord is kind of like winning like a lot of the tech communities. I know there's like some other like open source competitors that like some of these like self-hosting communities, but that's another thing I'm really big into, is all the self-hosting stuff, and like trying to break free of Google and everything. So yeah, but I think Discord is like is pretty much almost the de facto standard now over like Teams or Slack. A lot of businesses still use Slack.
The last sentence kind of came in and out a little choppy.
Oh, I think Discord is becoming like a de facto standard for tech communities over, say, Teams or Slack.
I think that is a wonderful move, really. Yeah. Having been Slack for the past 11 years. The companies I've worked with have used Slack, and even in the year and a half that I went freelance, I had a Slack channel set up so I could connect with clients, and all my clients had their own Slack channels to connect with me, so it was a little redundant, but I could definitely see, especially because I'm an admin on my team and I get the emails of the changes they're making the change log every week. It's kind of getting I don't know. I have privacy concerns around continuing to use Slack, and I'm curious if Discord has better policies in that regard.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, if you're worried about that, what you really probably want to look into is Matrix.
Hmm.
So Matrix is an it, you don't have to host it yourself, but I do because that gives you complete like agency over the data, over like the encryption. It's much more sort of yeah, I almost want to say paranoid, but just they actually make you like verify uh keys. You're supposed to technically do it in person, like but you know that's a bit of excessive. Like probably a video call is fine. With like every person that you want to have, you know, end to end encrypted communication. Right.
Oh,
Right. Because like
well,
that's how that's how it works. Is
it
like
feels like
everything.
an extreme other end of the pendulum swing
Well,
a little bit.
that's the only way to technically know that you know you're communicating with with the person that you think you are, and knowing that they're the only ones that can read your message, right? Is
Mm,
having seen them at the very least, if not met them, and manually verified, okay, this is your uh, public key, and you know you have the private key for it, and now we can go and do whatever and send messages to each other with our keys, and no one else can read.
yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I don't know. I immediately imagine somebody else using your device with the key
Right,
to
and
get around
that's
that, and you still can't
well,
do much
so
about that.
that's the thing. You make a very good point. You're exactly right. In the computer security world, physical access to a device renders it completely compromised. If
Hmm.
somebody has physical access to a device, at the very least, they can smash it with a hammer, which is a denial of service attack, right? So,
I've never thought of it like that, but yeah, that
yeah,
makes total sense.
yeah. So if you want to include, you know, the possibility of people having physical access to your device, to your key, then the entire thing is moot. The entire point is like,
Right.
yeah. Done.
Right. Because
Um,
and that, then like in person is really the only secure
right.
communication you can
Yeah.
try to try to achieve. I've so
Get
the
good at the Caesar shit.
1984,
Right.
but like I was like, oh man, even then they've got us.
Mhm.
But um
Yeah.
anyway, I digress. So we were talking about Discord and
Yep.
the bot you made with Rust.
Yeah. So getting into the whole Discord communities and everything, like it feels like there's kind of like two different kinds of servers. First of all, there's the text heavy servers, like where people are, you know, having conversations in different channels for different topics. There's a lot of like, you know, bots with games, like, you know, there's count, and you have to count in order. And, you know, there's like all the different types of text based, you know, RPGs and whatnot that you can imagine. And then there's more the BC servers where like you'll have 700,000 people in a server, and there'll be like nothing going on like all day, and then at night, you know, like there's always like 15, 20 people in a VC like all night, and you know, it's more oriented towards that sort of stuff, and you know, you get a lot of streamers and like podcasters, people like that will kind of like hang out in those servers, and you know, it's like, you know, the metaverse. It's, you know, like a
Mhm.
virtual sort of uh living room, or you know, gymnasium in like the classical Greek sense, right? Times Square. But,
Yeah, it sounds like it. It makes me want to definitely start breathing some life into my Discord presence.
Yeah. Well, be careful though, because some of them can be incredibly, as everyone internet is, toxic, and
Mm.
so yeah, that's always
Oh yeah.
very
I mean,
jarring.
I've been on Twitter long enough. I,
Right, that's right. Yeah,
I'm, it's all about cultivating your spaces, right? And attracting things that are genuinely aligned with
Mhm.
what you're about. And then you can tell if things are coming up that that don't feel good, don't engage with them. Like I have to
Yes.
remind myself all the time, like especially like if something offends me, I really I don't even, well, sometimes I struggle with it. Like there was
Mhm.
one post from somebody that I actually enjoy. Everything they've posted except for this one thing that like really kind of triggered me. And
Mhm.
for that person, I wanted to say like, hey, this might not be giving the message that you intended. It feels
Mhm.
insensitive, especially coming from you. But I realized, like, no, I have to let it go because if I engage with this content, I'm going to get more like it. So just let it go and then continue to seek out those things that I do want in my feeds.
Yeah. That's I can't remember who it was, but friend of mine, one of her favorite authors, um, there was this quote she had that like, there's nothing more powerful than letting someone be wrong.
Mm,
And that's kind of what you just described, I feel, is that like, no, I didn't like that. I don't agree with it, but I don't need to engage with it. I don't need to correct them. I don't need to get them to understand why it's wrong. Like, it can just be.
yeah. I mean, that's fair. And to unless you get the sense that somebody's open to
Mhm.
like I try to be, and I try to let people know, like, if I'm wrong, I want to learn and do better. But some people just aren't, and you can tell. So you got to pick your battles. And
Exactly.
yeah. All right. So starting with the Discord servers and the games and bots.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Um, that's where we were. So seeing, getting into the whole community and everything, and like the music bots and the bots in general, like kind of like uh, a big thing, like in some of these servers, because you say the music that you like, and you can, to a certain extent, get to subject everyone else in the VC to your music, which is something that people like to do. So that I wanted to learn Rust. I've been wanting to for a while, so I found and I like the idea of writing one of these bots because, excuse me, they were so popular, everybody seemed to like them. So I found actually a piece of open source code that was already like a very basic, almost like you know tutorial example, like bot, and I started with that as a basis. Well, first I started trying to actually write a Twitter bot in Rust,
Mm.
but that wouldn't have been a music bot, of course. But then I ended up going with this one, and like I took that and I forked it, and that was like 2.5 rewrites ago of the code base. So like it's evolved like immensely since then. But that's like one of the things I love about open source and about just putting the code out there is that like that project I don't think has done more like they updated a couple times, like library dependencies and things, but like no one's working on that project, and I just took it and like ran with it, and just went like a whole nother direction. So that's really like I feel like what the entire thing is about.
That's so cool. So it was a learning project, and you found something that had this basic architecture, and you forked it,
Mhm.
and you've totally turned it into. Wait, what have you turned it into?
So my bot is called Cracktunes, and it's basically at its core it's still a music bot, um, but like I have like a uh, can you can we say curse words on
Of
here?
course, yeah.
Okay. One of the things I added to it was a brain fuck interpreter, which I don't know if you know. If that's a esoteric, I would say, programming language. It has like maybe like 12 symbols in the entire language. It like if you imagine, like a tape uh with cells on it, kind of like a Turing machine, and then you have like a um, program counter, and you have a data pointer on the tape, and then you have the program that gets loaded onto it, and all you can do is move the data pointer, and you can increment the value on the tape. You can read the value on the tape. You can it's very very simple, and it's like plus increments and like minus decrements and dot reads and like right angle bracket like shifts it one to the right and one to the left. And so it's a very very terse. You can't just like read it like a piece of code because it just looks like pluses and like dashes and things like that. But it's incredibly simple. Like I wrote an interpreter for it in like just a couple hundred lines of Rust. So that is the type of thing that I'm like starting to put into it now. It's still very much like a learning type of project, but I am hoping to eventually, you know, get people interested in it and sell subscriptions to it, which is like generally with the music bots, you like put better quality streaming audio and stuff behind that. But I think like a lot of these extra like Easter egg things are really the cool thing because it's like and now it's like I have it in about 50 servers right now. At 100 is when it has to get like verified by Discord. That's when it gets the little like check mark, or it goes away if they don't verify it. So like having it in a bunch of servers and people using it, and then like I can add, like the brainfuck interpreter, or like I have some like OSINT tools, like just like virus scanning stuff, and it's really interesting to see like what people are interested in and what they use, and like what sorts of things they interact with and what things they don't care about. So like that's really cool to be able to have it's like a complete its own platform.
That is very cool. I'm curious if you know 30 to 50 people listen to this episode of the podcast and they start using your bot and push you over that 100 server mark.
Mhm.
Do you feel ready for that?
Yeah, I think so. Like I've been trying to do like a pretty regular schedule on getting releases out like every couple of weeks. Like last month there was only one, but I have not originally made everything async properly. I had been using blocking um, uh, like mutexes, and that that was something I had to like rewrite the whole code base for. So that was a big thing. Not rewrite the whole code base, but there was a lot of changes that trickled into everything. But I feel like I have it at the point where it's pretty stable on the main things. and I can just like work on like adding more stuff to it. So yeah, and I figured out how to do like scaling it and everything um, with Dockerization and all that stuff. So.
I noticed, I mean, you sent me the link to the GitHub
Mhm.
repository for Crack Tunes.
Yeah.
And as a point of like personal curiosity,
Mhm.
how do you feel about people making derivative works? And since this is something that you are invested in and trying to monetize, like how do you or do you keep certain parts like proprietary?
Nope. I would love for people to like take it and fork it and make changes to it, because then I can take those changes and pull them back in myself if they're good, right? Like that's like I think the way these open source projects um, kind of end up working is that there's like a group or often just a single person that's their baby, that's their thing, that's like and I feel like for anyone that like any one of these projects that like survives, there needs to be somebody like that. And isn't there really aren't any cases that I can think of where like a rogue actor came in and successfully like stole the project away and made a more successful fork or whatever. It's those sorts of things are things that you could worry about. And like I've thought about it, but it's like who's gonna put like 30, 40 hours a week into something that they're just doing for like I I don't know. Like that's as long as I'm interested in that, and eventually I probably won't be either the monetize it won't monetize, or I'll find something else that I um find more interesting, and then you know maybe someone else will pick it up, or I'll come back to it in 5 years or whatever. So like, but it's good that it's out there. I think that's like that's how mine started, was with another project. And so I feel like that just is far better, that there really aren't any downsides. Is like you can still like I can still sell the subscription services. I have all the experience in running the code and like what the pitfalls are, and like
I think that makes total sense. And I think you're absolutely right. The benefits of building open source are clear as far as giving back to the community, even leaving a digital legacy for the work that you have done. One thing that I struggle with, and I hope you can address, is how do you have the confidence to build in the open with a language that you're still learning?
um that's something I hadn't really thought about. Like I guess it makes sense, like like not wanting people to like look at the code and be like, oh, like this is horrible, like, but maybe it's like the autism, but I just didn't really I never really
Never
thought about
crossed your
that.
mind?
Yeah.
Oh, that's lucky. That's
like
cool.
there's plenty of things that I do have anxiety about, and like imposter syndrome and whatnot, but that isn't one of them, funny enough.
Maybe it's I'm
um
too steeped in Twitter as far as and like the tech
mhm.
side of Twitter. The way I see people speak about other people's code is what makes me
Oh,
not want to put mine out there, to be honest. Like I'm like,
so
I
I
know this is not that great.
so that's funny. Like somebody, I think, I saw posts like there's some website that compares like how much you tweet versus how much code you write.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've,
and I
I've been seeing this. I did mine. I write 9% more code, but that's over the past
okay.
that's since 2009, right? I
Oh
started
wow.
on Twitter in 2000 end of 2008.
Mhm.
And although I started my GitHub in 2010, I didn't actually, you don't see commits really. There's like one or two a year until the end of 2019, like the third
Mhm.
quarter. Then you see like I start using it. So it's a lot of, and everybody does this. Everybody who shared theirs has some kind of story about why the numbers
Yeah.
are how they are. Like, really, I'm working, I promise.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think mine I started so I have like a personal one like from back in college that I started. But the one that I do everything under kind of like internet persona that I've adopted is the Cycle 5 one, and that's since 2022, I think. Um, so there's only a couple years of history there, but that's pretty much what I've been using like for everything full time. And that was kind of an interesting like completely like switching over your persona like online to like a fresh one and like starting over with everything. It's kind of like that was interesting.
Was it like like a just yeah, a clean slate and a
Like I guess it didn't really change all that much, but that's because like I didn't up until when I started getting into Discord, which is when like I started actually meeting people, like talking to people. Like I hadn't really like been a part other than like some of the code communities. I hadn't really been a part of many of the online communities. So I didn't really have my like previous like internet persona like very tightly wound into any of those. So it
mm,
was basically just like not necessarily like starting fresh, but it was starting exactly where I was anyway. So I didn't really although I got up to like 300 followers on Twitch and then I have just completely abandoned that account for some reason and I've been streaming on Kick. I don't know why, but I don't know. Kind of
it's
went
like
along with
you
the switch in persona. Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's like you said um with the Discord bot, with the music, with crack tunes, like you may be incredibly passionate about it and for 5 years and then something else will come along. So I
Yeah.
think that that makes sense that that was the case with the Twitch stream and eventually, you know, there might be a reason to try that again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, like the sort of like path that like you were saying, like everybody has a story and like the path that you know you end up taking to good places.
Right. I mean, for me, um I watch a lot of ADHD content. I'm not diagnosed, but I find that like 9 out of 10 tips that I get
Mhm.
from in those spaces are very helpful to me. And there's one guy who I guess it's kind of a motto that he uses. It's follow the dopamine.
Mhm.
So that's
Yes.
kind of what I've been doing. So I do have a tendency to start and stop projects, and another one will come along. Or, I mean, I'm coming out of a phase just recently, and I think this podcast has helped a lot with that of just not really wanting to do anything. And
Yeah.
sort of like you said when you had that Java job, just like God, I don't know if my heart is in this anymore. And just little things are starting to pop for me like, ooh, no, this is fun and this is cool. And so now I have like an array of projects that are all like in their infancy. And I'm just like whichever one I feel like working on for like 90 minutes to 3 hours sometimes after work is what I'll dig into. And it's kind of, yeah, I'm just following the dopamine and seeing what
Yeah.
comes of it.
Yeah, no, that's like that's really awesome. And that's like the type of thing um like it seems like a kind of silly sort of like endeavor compared to, like writing code for, like a big financial institution or for like, NASA or something. But like every day when I like open up my VS Code, like I'm excited. I think there's something I want to work on that I'm excited to get to, and like that's what like I just hate. And I hated about office jobs was it was like, oh, okay, I really don't want to be working on this. It's like, and like it's in and there's still things that are like, rote and boring that you have to do, but it's like it's maybe I'm just not good with authority, because like the fact that I'm like, doing it for myself seems to make all the difference. That it's like, this is what I want to work on, and I'm gonna like get through all this like boring slog that I have to do to get to the next cool thing that I want to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. And I think it's got something to do with the parts of your personal project that are a slog. You're doing them because they unlock something else that's cool that you want to do, and you are very closely connected to that, and in that way the process almost naturally, organically becomes gamified for you. Like my husband plays a lot of games, and he was just talking about the slog of mining resources.
Mhm.
And how it's tedious, it's arduous. You have like 5 alt characters all out there just grinding, but
Yeah.
because if I get 5,000 more of this in-game currency, I get this thing that's going to really beef up my whatever it is, and then I'm
Mhm.
going to have a lot of fun for a couple days with it. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing when
Definitely.
we're building.
Yeah. Um, yeah, no, that 100%. Like you said, like follow follow the dopamine.
Mhm.
That's I like that. It kind of evokes uh Alice in Wonderland, like Lewis Carroll, like following like going down
The
the
white
rabbit
rabbit.
hole. Yeah, the white rabbit going down the rabbit hole. You gotta get that
Yeah,
dopamine.
it's true. I mean, if when I get in that state where like um a thought will occur to me and I'm like, ooh, I want to do that. If I can just do that thing instead of think of all the reasons I can't do it or I shouldn't do it right now, because I'm on a deadline for this thing that I don't want to do and don't care about, but I'm getting paid to do.
Mhm.
Like the energy between those two is it's palpable. And when you do the former and you follow the thing, then another thing happens that feels good, and another thing that happens that feels good, and you can just kind of that's a real creative mode, right?
Yeah.
That's where you want to spend the majority of your time, I
Yes.
think.
Yes. Obviously. Yeah. If only. Yeah.
Yeah, if only there weren't bills and rent and
Yeah.
groceries and gas and oh my,
Yeah.
but all that stuff.
Yep. Indeed.
um I am so curious about Rust in general. Like
Mhm.
you mentioned like kind of
Yes.
the pipeline C go Rust,
Mhm.
right? I
Mhm.
think that it if I'm hearing correctly, like you really want to learn in that order because each one builds off of the others. Is that accurate?
Um, yes, in a certain sense. Go is a really nice language, and I love how it does concurrency and message passing with like channels and go routines instead of coroutines. Go routine. Um, like I would almost say that Go isn't necessary. Like you have to, I think, right? You have imperative programming. That's like for loops, things like that. If then that's C. Then you have like pointer arithmetic. I think is really the other thing that's the big paradigm, the big idiom in C. Um, and then you have object-oriented programming, which is what Java did full tilt and it's gross. I hate it. The only thing that came out of that was any good was I think what they call abstract classes, but now we see as interfaces in
Mhm.
in places like Rust and like Haskell and whatnot. Um, and then there's the functional program, which is that's uh, lambdas, anonymous functions. That's your map, reduce, filter type of things where you're saying like this dot map like x to x times 2 or whatever, or like URL to like do a git request on the URL, and then you come out with like a list of parse like web pages or whatever. So Bust, I think, does it does the functional ones. It does algebraic data types and like interfaces. The big thing is that the lifetimes of variables and ownership of variables is a thing that I don't know really exists um, anywhere else, at least in the way that Rust has it. And that's how they don't have a garbage collector. Is they like reference count where everything is and very aggressively deallocate things when it goes out of scope or its lifetime ends. And that's what becomes really, really difficult is like you'll get these bizarre errors that like, can't move this variable out of like a borrow or something. And you're like, what the fuck does that mean? And, like you can't hold a lock across a weight, right? like these are like the types of errors you get from the compiler, and that's actually like preventing like a data race. Like holding a lock across a weight is you have the lock and now you're trying to go to another thread without giving it up. Oh, you have a deadlock there. Like there's but that becomes like a thing that you just kind of like learn to um it just becomes a part of the language even though it's
Right.
all semantic. Like you can like look at a piece of code and be like, okay, yeah, no, you're using this like outside of the lifetime that it already expired. And I think with any like new type of programming idiom that you learn. So I guess to finally actually answer your question, C, Go, Rust, I think is a good sequence. I would say Python first, but I don't think Go is entirely necessary. I think you get like with Python and C, and then maybe like a Haskell, maybe not Haskell. It's rather hairy. But some sort of like functional type of language, like even like TypeScript or something. Like
Mhm.
you like I think TypeScript is a good thing to learn, even though I hate web dev.
Ouch. I guess I
Well,
was
I
gonna.
don't hate web devs, but I hate JavaScript, and I
Yeah. Um. Yeah. JavaScript's an interesting language. For me, my relationship to it has been very much like I can grab it when I need it to do a certain thing. Over the past 15 years, ever since ECMA 5 came out, I've I've gone through like 6 JavaScript courses. And the one that finally made things really click for me and helped me make that transition so that I was ready to tackle React was Dan Abramov's Just JavaScript course. And what he does, what he hammers home is like you have to create a mental model of how this language works. And so, like, for his course, he has an analogy of the JavaScript universe and how different things in the universe relate to each other. So it sounds like even with Rust, it's a situation where you have to develop the mental model to understand how your variables exist with relationship to the different threads and the different times in the life cycle.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's like true with like any language that you're gonna learn, and it's yeah, like seeing the parallels there. It's always and Rust would actually probably be more natural to somebody coming from JavaScript, where they do the async await, right? You guys do that in JavaScript?
We do.
Yeah. That's what that's the same exact thing that's used in Rust. Async await is everywhere. So
yeah. Well, it sounds like something that definitely you've definitely piqued my interest. There's the main languages that I've worked in are so far like React and PHP. So everybody not everybody. A lot of the programmers that I follow and respect right now are very, very focused on either Go or Rust. And so I've definitely been wanting to
Go, Rust, and Python.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to pick up Python next. I think that's going to unlock a few doors and probably give me the next step after it, just as a natural progression. If it clicks, if it's something that is like, dopaminergic for me to learn.
Yeah. So Python for me is like it was always I mean, so like I still use it for DevOps stuff all the time. It definitely is a pleasure to write more than JavaScript was for me. I do, like, when I write Python, I try to do it all Python 3 with type hinting, so that my IDE can actually like yell at me about like type cohesion, because coming from like a strongly typed language like Rust, where if the program compiles, it shouldn't be able to segfault or crash or have a data race, period. That is not so in dynamic type languages. So I really like the type hinting that they have, so that you can you can declare the types of the things, and then the editor can tell you like, hey, this is not compatible. What are you doing? You're like putting an egg in like a apple basket or whatever. So
they're both foods. But I get what you mean. They definitely yeah, the case for strong typing is it's valid, definitely. I think I run into that a lot, or at least I've learned to know with a dynamic typed language, when it compiles but breaks, it's often a typing issue. So I just console log till I figure out where the mismatch is. And it's so honestly, declaring the type ahead of time and having the IDE say that this is not returning the right type, I can definitely see the benefit in that.
Yeah.
It's just the syntax gets so much more verbose that I feel like that's been the blocker for me as far as making the jump from JavaScript to TypeScript. It's I almost understand what it says intuitively, but the piece that I'm missing is enough to make me just like, I want to solve this problem now, not in 2 weeks after I understand this. So I just go back to what I've been doing.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So one of the things, and I don't know if the IDEs can do this in like JavaScript, but like you don't have to, if the compiler can infer the type in Rust, you don't have to explicitly declare it. It will have a a well-defined type, but you don't actually have to like tell the compiler that if it can get it from
It's
context.
implicit.
Yeah. So the thing is you can't like, it's an exceptional thing in Rust to mutate a variable. Like you don't actually like, you declare, okay, this is a hash map from strings to ints, right? And then what it gets like read in as is like what it is. And like you can declare things as like mutable and like change stuff, but like that's something like special that you have to tell, like, okay, yeah, this is mutable now. I'm going to be editing it. And then it starts getting like really strict about like, who owns that memory, like what are you trying to write to that location, and and that's when it gets like really, really strict, because according to it, it's just, this is a string, this is an int, this is a struct, and that's what it will always be forever, and it's never going to change. It'll just kind of like move through the data flow of your code, and that's kind of like the default assumption. So the typing, like the IDE will just show you the types even though they're not there. You can just like it knows the types, and you can like see all of that in the editor without actually having it make the code messy and verbose and everything. So I like these. I don't like manually types on everything.
Cool. Well, that's another plus for the Rust bucket. For me anyway. I'm curious. I mean, you've through this conversation given a lot of advice to me, specifically where I am and with what my interests are, how to move forward, and I'm like very excited about that. But I'm curious what you would say to anybody who's just starting out in tech now. Like, what would your advice be?
So not to discourage anybody, but like you need to find a project, like something that you want to work on, right? Like some people just have the right amount of tism or whatever, and they just love like coding or math or whatever, and that is enough per se. But for most people, I find they need to like, they can't just go through like a course and enjoy it. Like you said, you've done that several times, so you clearly do enjoy that to enough of an extent where that's what works for you. That's amazing. But like, find like a piece of software that you like that's open source, or something that you think you'd be interested in, and like find a project, find like a community that you like that is related to like some software project, and then be like, okay, now I'm going to like I want to change one little thing in this, right? And I think like as much as I, love theory and the like having everything from first principles, as a math guy, I think
Mhm.
with programming, it's like you actually want to kind of go the other way. It's if you have a reason, like we we almost did it right with MySpace actually. That we psyoped like an entire generation into learning CSS and HTML without even friggin' knowing it, just so that they could make their homepage pretty and impress all their friends. That's
Mhm.
the sort of thing that you need to do. Is you need to find something that you want to do already, and then solve the problem with code. And then all of a sudden, you're going to find yourself learning it and wanting to learn it. That and it's going to be a pleasure.
That is really great advice. I concur 100%. I know that, I mean, the courses, the reason I had to take 6 JavaScript courses before I understood it was because I took the course and like, okay, I passed the course, but I don't know JavaScript because it's not, it's having the use case and seeing how that tool can solve the issue, like getting your hands in there and like making mistakes, trying it and seeing what happens. And then for me, that moment of, oh, I see what I did wrong and I know
Yeah.
how to fix it.
And
That is where the
yeah.
the best parts are. Yeah.
Yeah, like I have a friend on one of my Discord servers that she wanted to get into Python, and like I told her this, and so she had been kind of putting off applying to like she's doing like a 2-year degree, and she wanted to apply to like full 4-year colleges, and she ended up writing a Python script to automate sending out an email to all of these different schools that you wanted to apply to and like expressing interest and seeing like what you could get for like financial aid. And I'm like that is genius. Like that is works for you in both ways, and like so like that's the sort of thing that yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is so cool. What other applications can you see that would be perfect for any of the languages we've talked about, Python or Rust or yeah.
Yeah. With Rust, like it's wide open. Like Python is great for if you like the AI stuff, right? If you like Stable Diffusion, like generating images with AI, if you like the LLMs, like getting like making chat bots, like all of that stuff is like mostly you're gonna be writing Python. That it has all the libraries, it has all the it has the ecosystem most readily available. So you know, find like a period of time that you're interested in, and like generate like 1,000 images with like if you have like a GPU or whatever, with a Stable Diffusion model or something that you pull off of there's so many free models out there. You can just like you don't have to use like Midjourney or like one of the paid ones. You can run it yourself and then script it up and have 10,000 you know like cats falling off of elephants or whatever by lunch.
That's awesome. That I mean, that's a great use case. I hope somebody builds that exactly.
Yeah.
um, very cool. That's a lot. It's a lot of great ideas for myself and for anybody listening. And I really hope that this does reach people who are, tech curious because
Tech curious, yes.
the guests I've had and yourself included, everybody has something that everybody has shared a little bit of what that spark is for them. And so I really hope that we can just pass it on, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So what are you looking forward to in the future here?
I'm really excited about Rust, about where that's going. It seems like there's a lot of every time I look for a new piece of software to do a certain thing, there's a project that somebody's writing in Rust to do it, and that makes me
Mm.
really happy. Um, so I'm really excited for that. I think that LLMs, like the whole AI thing, uh, it's useful, it's cool, I like it. I don't think it's going to be the singularity. So I think that's just going to end up plateauing. And well, just like the cell phone, it's like, yeah, it did change all of our lives. Like we now all have cell phones, but other than that, now we're gonna have cell phones with annoying little half people in them. That you kind of think, but not really. They're just
Yeah.
inverting matrices. So
Yeah, I felt like half people was generous, but
yeah.
yeah, you qualified it back to a reasonable. What'd you say? They're doing what?
They're just inverting matrices.
That's what I thought you said. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, like most of those algorithms boil down to iterative matrix multiplication or matrix factorization, which is solved symbolically as matrix inversion. So you're like inverting matrices and multiplying matrices, and that's all these things really do.
So I'm curious um if you think that the like actual singularity or true artificial intelligence, the way we mean it when we speak of each other, is that possible? And is there a direct line, if so, from the AI technologies we have today to what that actually is?
Uh, it is possible, but I think we're not even close to it. Like, I really want to believe, and this isn't scientific. I want to believe that there's like some quantum computation going on in the brain somewhere, so that we would need like a full quantum sized computer for us to even like start getting there. And I don't think we have like the models.
Mm. Oh, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially with what I've seen in terms of I guess the press releases from big tech like Google and their strides in quantum computing, and then what they release to the public in terms of their language models, their AI image generator, most recently, things that they roll out with kind of a lot of fanfare and big promises and then kind of walk it back. And so we're seeing that a lot. And so if that's the state that the most cutting edge companies are in, I can understand why it feels like it's going to be a while yet.
Yeah. So like I'm not worried about them like taking over like programming jobs or anything anytime soon because I use like don't get me wrong, it's impressive what they're able to do. Like I will generally go to GPT 4.0 128K or uh, Claude 3 Opus before I'll Google something, right? If I have a compiler error, I'll just dump it in there and see what it says. But it's like these are just tools that can do things. It used to be they could do very specific things very well. Now they're getting slightly more broad, but it's still I don't see it as being anywhere near the singularity as we think of it. And like they've so obviously hamstrung them with the personality. Like there's no like mischievousness. There's no like want or interest in like breaking the rules. Like there's no personality that exists in it.
Hmm. I mean, that makes sense for sure. Um, cool. What about sort of the backlash now with the models being trained on content from the community, basically without, I want to say without consent, but I think that's a gray area because of, the terms and conditions that we all read very carefully and understand and memorize, but yeah, with Adobe right now, because that just came up I think this week, that they want to, so yeah, so it feels like there's a bit of a,
I don't have like it that it sucks for like graphic artists. I think that they're probably going to be the hardest hit because like I generate graphic art things for stuff all the time. I think that there should be like society a segregation of AI produced stuff and like human produced stuff, and they should be treated differently. Like I've actually since this whole thing, I got into uh like practicing penmanship and like writing like in cursive and like mailing physical letters, like writing with a fountain pen and like I had like a weird reaction in some ways to it because like I wanted to go like completely opposite and like reclaim a little bit of like the physicality of that. But I think that on the other hand, like yeah, like graphic artists are gonna basically that's like they need to learn to use the tool and incorporate that. It, you got to get over it. Everything on the internet is everybody's at this point, and I'm sorry, but like that's just what it is. It's too late.
that's true. I mean, I stole a meme and altered it, and the meme was definitely, it was just somebody else's intellectual property to begin with, and they used another third-party tool to mash it all together, and then I used another third-party tool. So we've all been.
But we already have the right model for it. We have open source software. That's the right model. It's that it's I guess like okay, you still own the copyright on it, but you there's nothing to be gained by keeping everything and being like, no, you can't have this, it's mine. Like who's gonna use it? Who's gonna see it? Like
Right.
I just don't get it.
I think that's very helpful perspective, because just in the same way we were talking about, like, yeah, the benefits of open source and coding in public and being, being there to help to, just participate in the community. Well, AI is part of the community now, right? So they're gonna, that just,
and I mean like there was already like legal precedents that like it it can't own like I believe like a non-human thing in the American legal system. I don't believe can own like a copyright on a piece of work.
mm,
So it's gonna be attributed to human somewhere, right? If at all. I think with the terms of service, unless you have like the enterprise version, where you don't, where it doesn't get fed back into the training pool, I think that's all owned by whatever model generated by the people who put that out, right? Another reason for self-hosting your own models is then you have complete data agency. right? You ran the model, like you downloaded the open source software, you ran the model on the hardware that you own, and you generated the bits that make up the like cat girl whatever that you generated, and yeah, like completely cut them out of it. Like what most people want to do with these models, you can do like with a 3060. Like yeah, like everyone can just run it on their own computer. Well,
If their computer's good enough, right?
yeah, yeah.
There's all that, but that's a very good point. Yeah. So it sounds like on the whole, your outlook's fairly optimistic.
Yeah. Like I always think that people that are like complaining, especially a little bit, it's like wow, things are changing and I don't like it and I don't want to change. And it's like, well, you're gonna get like just hop on board, buddy, because everybody's going this way. Or
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a like it or not. And also the sooner you can come to terms, the sooner you can start recognizing opportunity instead of being angry. Right. Yeah.
yeah. So I think like where we've gone like way over. I don't.
Yeah.
But was there like these? I don't want to like keep you on like longer than you want.
No, this is actually a perfect time to start wrapping it up. I enjoy when the conversation's naturally like 90 minutes.
Okay, cool.
They're definitely like an hour's kind of minimum. I like to say that just so that we're not artificially trying to stretch the conversation, right? So this one just flowed right on through, and that is that's pretty cool. I like it when, I mean, it's not every time. It's nice when it happens. But my chair's not very comfortable, so I would like to wrap up, but I want to give you an opportunity now to shout out your social media, your Patreon, the Cracktunes website. Where can people find you and your work?
So the Cracktunes website is literally Cracktunes, but with the domain name is so it's crackton.es. I thought that was kind of cute, but I think actually it might be more confusing than anything. And then it's Cracktunes on Patreon as well, and the user on GitHub is Cycle5, and the video is Cracktunes, and yeah, that's the only thing I have to plug.
Cool.
Is the Discord music bot.
Great. So that's Cycle5, and all of those links are going to be in the description, so be able to find them there. And this episode's going to come out on Monday, 2 days from now. So I will I'm excited to put it up. Definitely tag you, and thank you so much for being here. This has been one of my favorites so far.
Yep. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed this. So yeah.
Great. All right. Well, definitely we'll have to have you back again sometime.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Meanwhile, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, you too.